Welcome to the sixth chapter of the Jackhammer Effect, the wonderful world of Jackhammer Effect, where every 2 weeks we host some really popular names from the business industry. It's always a pleasure to meet these amazing people every 2 weeks, and nonetheless, this week we have a very special guest with us today. But before we jump into that, the person behind the Jackhammer Effect, Mr. Myron Welik. Will you please take a moment and explain what the Jackhammer Effect is and introduce our guest?
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, we want to, first of all, I want to let everybody know why we call it the Jackhammer Effect. I think everybody knows, hopefully knows what the machine does in a construction site. Keeps going until it makes the hole or not makes the hole. But our definition and our reasoning behind, or rationale behind this whole thing is to find a way and make a way. Simple, but obviously not so simple. So a jackhammer is somebody who doesn't take no for an answer, who believes you find a way or make a way, who likes to think outside of the box, who does not quit until the effort is greater than the benefit. Welcome, everybody, especially Evan. Really, really appreciate it. I have to just quickly say this, and then I'm going to be on. I know he doesn't like me saying it, but as soon as I reached out to him, he was all over it and excited. He's a class professional guy, and you guys are really in for a treat. I could say it. Evan's not going to say it. So without any further ado, I don't want to, it's not about me at all. Axel, maybe you could start the conversation, sir.
Sure, I'd love to. Hello everyone. My name is Axel, and I'm co-host with Myron. Evan, it's actually hard to pinpoint exactly where to start, so I'm actually going to kind of let you kind of introduce yourself and tell us like kind of how you got where you are, and then we'll go and unpack some of it. Is that okay?
Sure. So the best definition of who I am is I'm a jackhammer. That's who I am. When Myron said that is, it's the living embodiment of how I got right here, right? Nothing was given. Everything was worked hard for. And at the end of the day, if I've been good at anything, I've been good at making moves at times where people stood still. But, just to go back, I graduated from Syracuse. I'm from New York. I graduated from Syracuse University in 1987, which makes me old, and which is awesome because I'm in a young person's business, which I love. About 8 months after, I was in the technology industry. I worked for a company that sold software hardware through a catalog back then, if you can even imagine selling through a catalog. But That's what I did. I didn't know what I was selling, but I did have a money-back guarantee, so that's what I sold. So that was pretty funny. So I don't know if it will work or not, but you can get your money back if it doesn't. Most people didn't send them, get their money back, so whatever. But and then I just woke up one morning. I said, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to do this anymore. So I basically quit on Friday, and on Sunday I packed up my 1987 Volkswagen Jetta, and I drove to California by myself. And decided that, all pastures were greener on the West Coast. And I got there and realized they were greener, but they were more expensive. And so that was a difficult realization. And then I had to get a job. So I ended up working with two successive IBM-owned companies in software, all in the healthcare industry. So that's where I cut my teeth. I had IBM teaching me how to be a pretty decent corporate consultant, how to peel the onion, how to assess problems, how to problem solve. And so I appreciate everything about them. And every time I hear Big Blue, it makes me feel warm in my heart. But that really wasn't who I was. At the point where I was in my mid-20s, I was far from a Big Blue guy. But I was smart enough to train under very smart, very, very intelligent, experienced, successful people. And then I decided I wanted to go a little bit more entrepreneurial. So I quit the world of working for big companies. I did the complete opposite. I worked for a guy who was a chiropractor selling accounting software to chiropractors, which in 1989, 90, 91 was still considered like crystals over your body and not touching you, and insurance didn't pay for it. And it was quackery, but some of them were good and some of them weren't. And so I sold software all over the country. And so the company was structured. The guy that owned the company, me, I ran the sales. The guy that wrote the software, and the customer service guy that charged every 15 minutes for customer service who was South African and unfortunately had a horrible stutter. So every deal I did, I got yelled at because he would be on the phone 3 times longer than he needed to be. This is the life I lived. But here's what I learned, right? I was straight commission. So that's the first thing. And when I went out, everybody was at the door waving goodbye because they knew if I came back without checks, nobody got paid. And so I was 23, 24 years old, and I was basically paying the bills of grown men and women in a company that really didn't have any liquidity. And I sold a lot of systems, and I didn't come back without checks. I was tenacious. I learned that, there's no excuses. You come up with an answer. You guarantee that you'll write your programmer will write custom code. You don't care. This thing will make ice, and it will drive your car and raise your children, and whatever you want it to do, I agreed to. And that's the way software was back in the 80s and 90s. It was crazy. It was the Wild West. And so I did that for a number of years. And then, I woke up to the realization that I didn't want to do that anymore. My dad played football at Syracuse. I was always a sports fan, and I wanted to be involved with sports. So I quit, which was hard because the owner of the company was a dear, dear friend of mine, and it really was the most painful thing I've ever done in business, leaving a good friend. But it was either my career or his career, and I decided I needed to go on with my career. And then, so what happened was, when you're living in LA, you can't go to the LA Times and say, hey, I want to be a sports agent. Like, oh, there's 5 jobs for sports agents. That's so weird. That didn't really happen. There was no jobs for sports agents. But back in the day, the Los Angeles Clippers actually had a ad for a salesperson. So I'm like, okay. And I went, and it was at the old sports arena in Los Angeles, which is where the Clippers played. And the sales manager, who happened to have gone to Syracuse where I went, but I didn't know the guy, was like a drill sergeant. And there was like 20 people in a circle around the middle of the court. And he was literally one at a time screaming at people saying, why do you want to work for the Clippers? And half of them couldn't speak English. The other half were petrified. And I told him to go screw himself. And I just turned around and I walked out the door because I didn't want to work for the Clippers. So that job went away. But I finally got to the point where I sent enough resumes out. One company called me back. It was a company called Fluid Sports Entertainment. It was owned by an NBA player, Charles Smith, who played for the Knicks. And the company represented 16 NBA basketball players. So like everything else in my life, I went and did an interview. I walked out. I'm like, I got the job. Well, like 3 months later, I still didn't have that job. So I started thinking, well, I'm running out of money. I got to do something. So before the word stalker actually was invented, I went to their offices at 8:30 in the morning on a Tuesday morning and waited for the vice president of the company. He showed up. He's like, hey, Evan, you have an interview in the building? I'm like, no, I'm here to see you. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I got an offer so good, you can't refuse it. And he's like, okay, come on in. And so I said, look, here's what I'm going to do. I really want to do this. And his biggest fear, by the way, was I had a great technology sales background, did about $8 million a year, and they were not in technology. And so the ability to mentally approve that somebody can transition from one to the other was just so difficult. Back then, maybe even now, I don't know. And so I said, look, here's what I'll do. I'll take the job for 30 days for free. I'll make 150 calls a day, and I'm going to close my first deal by the end of the month. 2 weeks into it, God willing, the director of sales quit and took a job with Coca-Cola. They immediately hired me as the director of sales.
Nice.
That represented 16 NBA basketball players. I got a salary, benefits, the whole thing. And it goes back to the first of many things in my life, which are, if you don't take risks, you never will get a reward. Never, ever, ever, ever. And to me, the risks I've taken have always been steep, but they've always been risks worth taking because the only person I've ever invested in at that level is myself, because I believed in myself. So the only risk could be I could let myself down. There was nobody else involved. And so I did that for about 2.5 years. And like all good entrepreneurs, I wasn't yet, but I was about to be. I quit. I took one of the clients and I started my own agency thinking I could do it better than they could. And that was 1995. I started my first of 5 agencies called Premier Management Group. And that agency represented 500 Olympic athletes, including Mark Spitz and Bruce Jenner and Jackie Joyner-Kersee and Janet Evans and Dara Torres and Greg Louganis and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Matter of fact, my agency actually had medalists that won over 150 medals, which would have made me the 25th most medal country in the world, except for they don't count me. But anyway, that was what. And then, I did that for a very long time. And I was at the Beijing Olympics, right? Moved forward, 18, 15 years. I was at the Beijing Olympics. I had 7 clients, all won multiple medals there. I just got done watching Nastia Liukin, the gymnast, win 5 gold medals. And I was leaving the arena. It was in a torrential downpour. And I'm in Beijing, China, and I'm waiting for a cab, which if you're Anglo in a rainstorm, you're not getting picked up by somebody in the Chinese military. Ain't going to happen. So I'm just like, this is just misery. I'm wet. I'm cold. I'm happy because we just made a lot of money. But you know what? I'm still freezing. And I'm like, I got to figure out something else because I can't keep recruiting 14-year-old girls without molars. There's just something weird about that. I was 40 years old. I was older than most of the parents of the kids I represented. I had to do something else. So I said, I'm going to give myself 6 months to come up with a good idea, and I'm going to start another agency or another company. And what I decided was, the IBM background, the corporate consulting was great. I love the celebrity athlete negotiation piece. So much fun. Can't even begin to tell you. And I just decided I wanted to do more consulting. I wanted to do more like really A-level director of marketing kind of stuff. So I came up with a company, Celeb Experts. I put up my website. And I said, you know what? Here we go. I'm going to take another chance. And I did this, by the way, during the insane financial downturn because of the residential housing crash in 07 and 08. Okay, so it was more towards 08. And I said, I'll try it anyway. And 6 days after I launched my website, I got an email. Hello? Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Six days after I launched my website, I got an email from Microsoft saying that they were building a food and drink app on MSN, and they knew nothing about celebrity chefs. We helped them hire celebrity chefs. And I said, sure. And they flew me to Seattle and, went through the dance. And because I worked at IBM, I knew exactly how to do it. And they hired me on the spot. They paid us $250,000 to hire really 35 of the world's greatest chefs, Jose Andres, Wolfgang Puck, Tom Colicchio. I mean, the best of the best. And we helped them curate 1 million recipes. And like all good things Microsoft, they got bored of it. And in 6 months, they crashed it. They just said, you know what? The millions we spent, it's okay. It didn't matter. But I'll tell you what, it was a beautiful piece of work. So then Celeb Experts, I've worked with companies big and small. Everybody from Smithfield to Mercedes-Benz to startups to all kinds of different businesses. And then, as I was doing that, I said, I need more diversification because I can't ever trust the economy's ever going to be so strong again. So I started 3 speakers bureaus. So I've booked people like Gary Vaynerchuk and, God rest his soul, Jack Welch and Venus Williams and all kinds of people for events all over the world. And I still do that. And, that's a great business into itself. And then what happened was, and just to move it forward to now, so like 2 weeks before the full close down in the United States, I'm here in my house. I've worked out of my house mostly for the 28 years I've been in business, not entirely, but mostly. And I'm sitting in my favorite chair by the fireplace where I do most of my best noodling. And I'm like, it's time for a refresh. And my wife's like, you need a shower? I'm like, no, the company. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm going to start a new company. I'm getting rid of Premier Management Group. She's like, you've done like $90 million. That's paid for, 2 kids to go to college, 2 more on the way. Like, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm like, it's a perfect idea. This is the time to do it. So I went on to GoDaddy and I started, typing, and I found the Digital Renegades. And I'm like, I'm a renegade. And I'm like, and I'm in digital, so this works. And so I bought it. And then I went to my vice president, Christina. I said, hey, Christina, what do you think of the name of the Digital Renegades? And she's like, I love it. I'm like, great, you're going to build the website. She's like, I've never built a website in my life. I'm like, exactly. This is great. We're all learning at the same time. So I gave her a couple of days. She built the website, which exists today. It's a very nice website. And then I did what I do, which is like, I'm a really good recruiter of talent. So then I started going on TikTok and because TikTok really is the focal point of the company because that's where all the money is today. And I started recruiting, signing people. And what I realized was there was 4 categories that were becoming really obvious that there was talent. It was food, fitness, nutrition, and beauty. And those were the top ones. And actually it mirrors, where the companies are that are selling direct to consumer that were looking for an alternative place to sell because retail was dead. right? Like as soon as the country closed, everyone like their hair went on fire, and they're like, we got to find an alternative way to sell. First of all, we've got so much inventory tied up in the stores, we can't get it out. Maybe the insurance covers it, maybe it doesn't if we last that long. And secondarily, we can't go out of business. We got to figure, alternate ways to sell. And so I created these concentric circles and categories that I just thought I could start doing deals. And so 3 days after we did this, and the phone didn't ring at all, and I'm like, maybe this is not the best idea. And then all of a sudden the phone rang, and it hasn't stopped since. Because what happens is with great talent that can deliver an amazing audience of very specific types of people that corporations are interested in, there's an unlimited amount of money out there that companies will spend to reach that audience. Not any one company with an unlimited amount, but there's so many of them. And TikTok is the new flavor. Instagram's got its own problems. There's issues with, how they're allowing people to post their content who can see it. So everyone's porting over to TikTok, and I got out early, hard, and fast. And all of a sudden I've got all these food people, these chefs. And so I started thinking, you know what? There's nobody out there that's put together a group of the best chefs, home cooks, and bakers on any social platform. And then I came up with the idea of the Food Renegades. So I pulled that together. I signed 10 of these great chefs, from $1 million down. And now we've done 2 group license deals, one with a company called Dano's Seasoning, another one with the beef, I forget what the name is, like the Beef Association in the United States. And we've got a bunch more deals on the way. And it's just been incredible. And so this is where I am today, 54 years old, mired in TikTok, haven't shaken my butt in 25 years. But I'll tell you what, if it keeps going like this, I'm dancing like the best of them.
Wow, that's really impressive.
Thanks.
There's so many different things to go back and to unpack. And just like, could you, because I've looked at TikTok a few times, but I've always seen like some cool chick dancing for 30 seconds. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's a music video thing. Like, can you tell us like from the very basic, like, what is it? How does it work? Who's gone into it? When did it start? A little bit about the background?
Sure. So it's a Chinese company called ByteDance. And therein lies, obviously, everybody's fear, right? Is the Chinese government taking all of our data? I mean, India just put them in timeout for a week. So they didn't get rid of it completely, but they put them out in a timeout for a week. So we'll see what happens there. And, it's a great company for, the administration, if they want to, just slap around too, to say, you're standing up to China when you're really not standing up to China. But anyway, so it's been out there for 5 or 7 years, predominantly in China and adjoining countries. And it's been an incredible platform for kids to show a level of freedom, right? So coming from China, the ability to communicate, sort of a free speech, that's not that easy. So when you think about how many, kids are there that had no platform, because there is no Instagram in China, there is no Facebook in China, I don't believe there's a Twitter in China. And so this is a platform by the Chinese for the Chinese that gave them a phenomenal platform to go out and express themselves. And it just took off, to be honest with you. And it got here to the United States probably 3 years ago, 2 years ago. And I had worked with them on a couple of different small projects, got sort of a good understanding what they're looking for. So to start, see, because here's the thing, everything changes, right? So what they were doing to aggregate people and then do, data learning and AI, and then ultimately turn around and turn it into an ad platform, it evolves. So what they originally wanted was a no algorithm, meaning whatever happens, environment, which is great because all the other platforms are further along and people that are there, including the influencers, are complaining because they can't get any kind of growth, they can't get any kind of return on investment. So now when a new platform shows up at the level that TikTok shows up, everybody migrates over because they're like, oh, it's free, it's easy, it's good, we're going to make money, which is true until it changes, and it will change too. So what happened was it originally started as a very young kids dance music platform called Musical.ly. And then it was bought by ByteDance, turned into TikTok, and now it's the platform that you've seen, Gen 7 or however many changes they've had since then. But what happens with every social platform, guys, is this. That as fun and cool as it is for young kids, the young kids migrate off the second they see their parents on it. And the parents always go on it because they want to know what their kids are doing. You know what I mean? So it's like this symbiotic relationship. You know, the kids crawl on and they're like, woo, we're having fun, unfettered, unchecked. And then all of a sudden the parents are like, hey, what are you doing? Nothing. But then there's one parent. It's probably always the same parent, by the way. One parent figures it out and tells all the other parents because they're all on like a Facebook group chat. And now everybody knows. And then they all migrate over. And, you know, so what happens is now the kids are going to Likee, Likee, or Zyn, Zynn. And that's where they're going for dance and fun. And while the parents still think that their kids are on TikTok, right, they're now settling into the app. And so that's why you see a very mature development of these business stratas. So food is not singing and dancing. Food is cooking. But if you think about it, the perfect storm happened for food and fitness. The pandemic hits. People are now stuck at home. They can't get to a gym. And for all the people that ate out 5 to 7 times a week, they have to fall in love with their kitchen again, or otherwise they don't eat. So it's just like incredible how this stuff happened. And because of that, the commerce associated with that imploded. And so because I was in heavy in fitness and in food, it's been the Wild West. Absolutely insane.
Makes sense. But just to understand, like TikTok, is it like basically like a small YouTube where you just upload videos that you make? Or?
No, well, YouTube is YouTube, right? YouTube is for more long form. It's more. People say it's more like Vine, where it's shorter. It's it's anywhere up to 60-second content.
Okay. So it's like Instagram stories, but just stories.
Well, Instagram stories wishes they were TikTok.
Yeah, by now.
Yeah, because they had a shot. They had an opportunity. I remember when it came out because I represent one of the biggest Instagram stars, Chetan Selter, is a fitness star. And, we were one of the first people they came to, knocked on our door, and it was so badly laid out. And they didn't really know what they were doing. And there was no consistency to the servicing of it. And they just sort of forgot about it. It became like the orphan child at Instagram. And so while they snoozed, somebody rolled in. It's just how it works.
Yeah.
I have a question. Before I ask a question, it's I have to admit this, but my 2.5-year-old daughter is addicted to TikTok. She actually takes her mom's phone and automatically, scrolls up, opens up the app, and then keeps scrolling. It's like, what are you doing? So, with that being said, not something I'm proud of, but what do you see the future of TikTok being? Where do you think TikTok will go to? How far do you think down the line TikTok will survive? And whether the CC, the Chinese Communist Party influence, would be a deal breaker in the long term or not?
So I'll take the political question first. My assumption is this. I'm a pretty astute follower of politics, so I'll give you my very strong independent view of what's probably going to happen. They're going to get beat up pretty hard, depending on what happens with this next election. It's just going to happen because the Chinese are they're going to, unfortunately, as they flex their muscles around the world, we're going to have to roll them back because, unfortunately, the last 3.5 years has given them unfettered growth as we beat each other up here in the United States, sadly. But what's going to happen, I think, is that they're going to be forced to spin a completely and wholly U.S. subsidiary owned by a U.S. citizen and or company here in the United States. I don't see any other way around it. And while Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat and all these others are, in the sides snickering and saying go after TikTok, any kind of legislation that affects TikTok will massively affect all of them. So don't think of it as a TikTok issue. Think of it as a social media issue because they're going to take them all on, right? This whole nonsense of being able to elect officials from foreign governments by being able to trigger fake ads is just the most unconstitutional, disgusting thing ever. So it's got to be addressed. And I don't care what platform it is. I'm platform agnostic, to be honest with you, when it comes to that stuff. So I believe they have a bright future for one reason, though. They've about the way that they relate to influencers different than every other platform. So Zuckerberg and his cronies got to the point where they decided that the influencer was their competitor because there was billions of dollars being funneled to influencer programming. that they weren't making any money on. I said years ago that if Mark Zuckerberg was as smart as he says he is, he would have opened an agency that signed any influencer to an exclusive deal and paid them up front, and then owned all the advertising vehicles associated with his properties. But he didn't. And so what happened was, entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs, and they're going to find a way to make their money. And that's exactly, social media, just, for the lack of a better term, is probably the greatest incubator of entrepreneurism in our lifetimes. There is no better entrepreneurial incubator than social media. When you hear people talk about micros, that's just a small, up-and-coming micro entrepreneur, right? Somebody that's learning how to make money, learning how to build their business, learning how to grow, and then all the way up to the macros, the big ones, who are already running their own business, who are entrepreneurs, who are actually employing family, friends, outside people. It's the most beautiful entrepreneurial environment that you can imagine, because you can do it in any way you want. There is no rules, right? There are no rules to being a social media entrepreneur. You do what feels right. And if you have an audience to back you, by God, you're gonna have success. And I've seen people that don't even have huge audiences make huge amounts of money because the people that they have as followers are zealots. Whatever they sell is being bought. So it's great. At the end of the day, having a community of like-minded people that buy products that you endorse, manufacture, or whatever, phenomenal business. Phenomenal business. So the difference, just real quickly, in TikTok is that they value the influencer like no other platform. The bigger influencers all have account reps. The account reps tell them what hashtags work. They talk to them about how often they should post. They talk to them about the video quality and content. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And, look, because so big companies like Smithfield, the largest pork company in the world, and we're talking about doing deals with TikTok. They open the door and say, let us tell you how this is going to work. We're going to tell you how you're going to get an ROI. We'll guarantee it. So they're very, very confident, and they can control everything. And the other crazy thing is, I have deals where the contract with major corporations are done with and through TikTok. That would never happen with Instagram.
What do you mean? They're done through TikTok.
TikTok is the contracting party on behalf of the corporation. So what happens is, let's say company A buys a big advertising campaign. Okay, company A gives them $10 million, $5 million, whatever. As part of that is also an execution of an influencer program. So they knock on my door and say, I want influencer A, B, Z, D, whatever. And then I do contracts directly with TikTok on behalf of the company. So I'm not even contracting with a company. That's so cool that the platform's coming to us, giving us money for deals.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's phenomenal. It's unheard of. So it's just a different environment. So my feeling is, because the influencers are really enjoying the environment of growth, unfettered growth, I'm going to give you some statistical information. So on Instagram, they say that when you post, let's say you're going to post a picture or a video of your family, you can probably deliver about 10 to 18% of your audience at any given time. When you post, only about 18% of the people that follow you can see it. Now, they may be able to see it over time, but I'm talking about when you post it. In addition to that, your content's not in chronological order anymore. So they mess up the chronology of it all. So it's a little disconcerting, and advertisers don't love that. On TikTok, not only do you deliver your content to your followers 100%, but on average with my clients, there's an uplift of between 7 to 10 times their audience. So I'll give you an example. One of my clients, her name is Cassidy Thompson. It's Cassidy __ and the letter T. 21-year-old out of Atlanta, fitness, gymnastics, fun, lifestyle, great girl, worked with Procter & Gamble and a bunch of other companies. When you look at the back end data of her account, because they all give you that, you'll see that, as an example, on a monthly basis, she'll have X amount of views, and it also say how many followers she has, Okay, so her views are 65 to 85 million views in every 28 days. And she has 5 million followers. So the uptick of who they're delivering her content to is so contradictory to every other platform. Every other platform wants to limit it so you're forced to buy advertising. They want the advertisers to buy advertising, where TikTok explodes your content and wants everybody to see your content. And then the other thing that TikTok does, and I am actually guilty of this, they have like an unspoken endorphin pop, and here's what it is. I because of this whole pandemic, I bought a plastic pool, like a rubber pool for everybody to get like cool off here in North Carolina. And so I threw the hose in there, and the hose was going back and forth like a snake. And I just videoed it and I posted it. And apparently everybody thought it looked like a snake eating a rat. It's got almost 1 million views. Who am I? I've got a video with 1 million views. So now when I post, I'm like, oh, I want to get that again. You know what I mean? You get that pump. And I think they do that on purpose, which is great, because now everybody's shooting for that, going viral, right? You want to go viral, which means your content goes 100 times more than your number of followers or more. So it's just such an interesting platform. They've dotted every I, they've crossed every T, they're making smart investments, they're working diligently with companies, they work great with influencers, they work great with the agencies. I haven't had any arguments with anybody there. Whereas on Instagram, I had a client whose account was stolen. I couldn't even get anybody on the phone. So you recognize the differential in how people are treated, and that's why you want to be on TikTok. That's why, to be honest with you, I think they've got a good chance of making it at least longer term. There'll always be somebody new and fast and great, but for now, for the next 36 months, I think they're going to be here and strong.
Okay, one quick question. How many followers does it take to be considered an influencer in your eyes?
More than one. You know what I mean? Like, you can be an influencer over your kid if your kid's the only one following you. I mean, are you asking me what does it take to make money? What define the question?
I guess, because I had heard for Instagram, it's like once you reach above 10,000, you can start to try to monetize it. Is that the same for TikTok?
Look, here's the thing. The definition of monetization is the problem, right? So if you mean, will a company pay you? Look, there's people that have 5,000 followers, 2,500 followers, but it's really homogenous content for a very specific topic or category, and they'll find people like that and pay them. It may not be a lot, but it'll be something. The flip side of it is somebody may have 750 followers, and they do the most incredible paintings on their head of Jimi Hendrix in day-glow yellow, and maybe there's 750 people that follow them that want to buy that crap. You know what I mean? So, that's the thing with social. If you have an audience that's interested, then you can leverage that audience to expend money. But in terms of corporations paying you money, sure, the more followers you have, the more money you can make. But there is no specific delineation line. That's not necessarily how it works.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for you. Evan, if somebody in business, what would your advice be to somebody in business, startup or not on TikTok, but does have the stereotype perception of it's, as Axel articulated, young people dancing. So he or she may not instinctively feel that TikTok is for him or for her business. I guess my question is, how can somebody in business leverage the assets of TikTok, and how do they do it? Are there some parameters? What would your advice be to somebody?
So, great question. The answer to that is always find the community of like-minded customers. So let's just take, for the sake of discussion, let's say you had a company that was manufacturing some type of pad that like a salon pass when you have a backache. So, it's like a big Band-Aid with like some kind of medication on it. You put it on, it makes you feel better. Okay. Now, typically, right, that demographic is going to be 45 and older, right? Because it's not really a sports product. That's not the market they're going after. They're going after a postpartum 45 and older man, woman. That's their audience. Okay. And people are like, I never use that on TikTok. Aha, you're wrong. And here's why. Because the fastest growing audience on TikTok are people over 30, therefore people over 45. So what's going to inherently happen is that there's going to be an older and older and older audience of people that you could potentially sell product to. So here's what I would do. I would first start searching for people based on hashtags and keywords. Backache, baby boomer. And what I would do is I'd start looking till I found somebody that looked like me, right? I'm 54, and had a bigger audience. And then I'd go to who they follow, and who they follow is typically a mirror image of who they are. And so then I'd go vertically down and start following lots more people. And now those are the people I would probably knock on their door and go to their DM, right, direct message, and say, hey, I've got this amazing product. I don't know if I can market it on TikTok. Would love to have a conversation with you. Maybe we can work together. Maybe it's just two people shooting the crap. But that's what I would do. I'd do research. I'd find my audience, and then I'd engage my audience and find out if there are other people doing it. Are there people talking about this? Are there groups that are discussing it? Because if you look at it, there are groups for healthy food. There's groups for fried food. And it's like that with fitness and health and people that have post-surgery and, all these kind of things exist. So that's what I would do. While most people would say, oh, that sounds more of like a Twitter audience or a Facebook audience, I'm not saying that's not true. But what I am saying is if you have a product for 40-year-olds and older and you get in early on TikTok and make some waves, I promise you, your competitors are going to have a way tougher time embarking on that journey because you got in first. And maybe it isn't that big of a marketplace for that category. But if you're in and in good, you become known as a cool company that's selling a great product to an older audience and providing relief. I think you've got a great opportunity there.
Would you see it as a platform where, for example, a real estate investor could go and try to connect with investors to raise funds?
Nah, I mean, that's more of a LinkedIn process, right? I mean, sure, does that happen? Yeah, because like on my bio, I could put anything. I could put Big Bird. I'm Big Bird. That's what I want to put. And if people want to put real estate investor, then I can go to hashtag real estate investor, and I'll find people like that. That's part of their. So I could always find people that way. Mm-hmm. But if I really wanted to find a high class, high quality group, and by the way, I don't know what that means because everyone could be lying, but at least people that I can check out their CV, I'd probably go to LinkedIn before anybody else, any other social platform.
Evan, you've written some great pieces I've read on influencers, the power of influence, the emerging redefinition of influencers. Can you talk a little bit about influencers and their influence in the world today, especially now with COVID?
Sure. What's interesting is the word influencer is sort of overused. I mean, we're all influencers in our own sphere, right? I mean, I've got 4 kids. I'm an influencer. My parents, they're an influencer. So, I think what happens is it's the way that here's what my gut instinct is, that the agency and brand people really like using the word influencer because it's their way of driving down the price by comparing them negatively to celebrities. That's what I think. Because if you were to call everybody a celebrity, then they'd have to get celebrity rates. But if you call them an influencer, it's like, ooh, influencer. Like there's somewhat like stinky baggage comparative to a celebrity. I think that's horseshit. I think that the truth is, if you think about this, I'm going to give you a great example. Okay, name for me the last blockbuster movie George Clooney was in. You don't have one. You'd say Ocean's 11. And I tell you, you know what? Unfortunately, that was 10 years ago. Okay? So that's the problem with celebrity. They're living off their past. I can point to any one of a number of my own clients who have more influence than George Clooney, even though he may have a broader platform globally. My clients have more influencers that are in touch with them every day. Right? Because George Clooney lives in Lake Como with his wife and his kid, with guards and fences, and who lives that lifestyle? And so what happens is the celebrity divide with influencers gets wider and wider, and the people that are enjoying the communication and connection with real people are shifting towards influencers in droves, and celebrities are paying the price. And here's the interesting thing: just like retail was like the dinosaur that was going to die no matter what because it just makes no sense. Who the hell wants to go to a mall and walk across the mall to get to the store and have to park 40 minutes away anymore? Why do that? I'm going to go to my phone and go to Amazon, get it here faster than I probably could get back to my car. So what's happened with celebrities and how the pandemic has hurt celebrities, shutting down Hollywood, shutting down all the production, and there only being retreads of movies and things like that, has forced everybody to try and find entertainment. Where are they finding it? They're finding it on social media. That's why TikTok's numbers are at all-time highs. So instead of going to their TVs, which most kids under 25 don't have TVs anymore, that whole industry is in massive trouble, massive trouble. So we're going to see a divergence there too. So influencers are going up, celebrities are flat to going down. Like there'll always be, the unicorns, the giant stars, but everybody else is going like that because they can't get traction because the person that their kids are watching on TikTok or Instagram or everywhere else has more fans and followers than they do. Oops. Happens.
That's amazing. We would also like to ask our audience to ask Evan if you have any questions. Please go ahead. Does anyone have any questions?
Eva wants to ask something. Come on, Eva. What do you want to know?
Eva, you want to ask something?
Yeah, she's just too shy because she's 22. That's like it's her market.
Well, she doesn't need to ask a question. She knows more than I know.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
That's okay. What do you do, Eva?
I'm in school. I'm a graduate student.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'd have another question otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned because the Jackhammer Effect is Myron's creation, and because for his sense of entrepreneurship and wanting to share amongst entrepreneurs and lessons learned, and and just kind of create a place where people can talk. And you mentioned earlier, I like the story you said about the drill sergeant, about maybe working for the Clippers, but right after that you said about transferring skills from being like a software sales guy to sports management. And if we can kind of go back at the macro level, like for entrepreneurs, it's so important to be able to transfer skills and say, I've learned this in this industry, but now I'm in something completely different. What pieces do I take and reuse and adapt? And I was hoping you'd be able to help us because you've created numerous business and you've had to transfer skills a lot.
Yeah. Let me reposition that a little bit because I'm going to tell you what I run into all the time because I'm a consultant too. So I help corporations and startups all the time. Here's the biggest problem that I see with the new entrepreneur. They tend to be younger, they tend to be smart, they tend to be very tech savvy, and they tend to be horrifically arrogant. And here's what happens when you combine all those things. Your first answer to every question is outsource. And to me, as an old dog, I never would outsource. When I started my company, I did it all. I did it all, man. Washed the dishes and mopped the floor and like whatever it took. And that's how you learn your business. And that's how you learn your industry. And that's how you learn people. This is a world that we live in that there's so few personal connections and even less made now because we're doing Zoom calls. And you don't get to meet people. You don't get to shake hands, look them in the eyes, try and really evaluate who they are. If I have one great skill, I read people better than most I've ever met. I can read people, and that's a skill that I garnered over being on the road for years and years and years. People don't have that skill set anymore. They either just accept stuff or they don't accept stuff. There's just no interpersonal reaction. And so my thing is that you could be the best inventor in the world, but if you don't know how to deal with people, your invention's never going to get sold. If you are the absolute best manufacturer of product and have the best relationships in China, and you bring product back and have no idea how to sell, what's the point? So the necessity to have multiple skills is still so important. If you're a specialist, here's actually the truth. I'm going to put it in the context of sports. Don't know how many sports fans you have, but I'm a sports fan. If all you did was play baseball and you were a pitcher and all you did since you were 9 years old was pitch, I guarantee you by the time you're 22, you will have at least 1 and maybe 3 arm surgeries, from the Tommy John elbow surgery to a shoulder surgery. Why? Because you overworked that part of your body 12 months out of the year. Where, as when I was a kid, there were seasons. Played football, played baseball, played basketball, and then I had one open season to do whatever I want, like swimming. And what happened was everything worked together in me learning a little bit more about my body, about my ability to overcome obstacles, about my strength of mind. Like, and as I got older, it just kept, ratcheting up. And I believe my background as an athlete, not as an elite athlete, but just as an athlete, has so much to do with my success as an entrepreneur, because every day I still feel I'm in a game. I'm in a competition, and I take those skill sets and I have that mindset, and I never want to lose. I hate losing. I'm a very competitive guy. So I feel like people that specialize, that haven't really gotten a lot of experience in life, while they could be the smartest people on the block. Look, my son just graduated MIT. Don't get me wrong. I'm around smart people, right? But that doesn't give you street smarts. And that doesn't guarantee you're going to make the right decision at that time, because there's nobody there that's going to talk about your lab when they're standing there asking you to make a decision that's either going to make or break your baby. So I just feel like people need to spend more time learning about themselves, understanding their weaknesses and strengths, and working on them. Being great is work. And I always tell people, there is no greatness without failure. I think that the people that are out there now, a lot of the younger entrepreneurs that I consult and talk to, they're afraid of failure. They never want to admit they failed at anything, because their friend launched this dating app and now he's on an island and, whatever. And everybody's afraid of telling the story about when you failed. Hey, guess what? Before my first successful company, I failed twice. The first one, I tried to start a company. This is the dumbest idea ever, but at the time I thought it was great. I had an idea that I was going to come up with like a gun holster, because I grilled a lot. That I was going to come up with a gun holster. Instead of guns, I could put my barbecue sauce and my spatula and all this stuff. And I actually went and got a prototype built. And when I was ready to go to production with it, I saw that KC Masterpiece, which is a barbecue sauce, had already done one and was selling it at a store. And I was crushed. And then the second time, I started a company with actually one of the senior executives of a corporation I previously worked with, and I made a mistake. My mistake was that I was young and dumb and didn't really take the opportunity seriously, and he closed the company in 3 hours. 3 hours. And that was because I was just stupid. I failed, and I got fired from my last technology job. These are all part of who I am today, and I'll never forget it. The guy that fired me, and till today, the only guy that's ever fired me, is my friend on LinkedIn. And once a year, I write him and thank him. Because had he not fired me, I'd still be doing the stupid technology jobs. So thank God, Tim Tolan.
Totally makes sense. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
It's always interesting to hear stories about life and how people got to where they're at, because we often see the bright side, but we forget all the late nights and the hard work and the sacrifices that are done along the way.
Are you in a rainforest?
I wish. No.
Okay.
No, they're not moving, sadly.
Oh, I was going to say, be careful. I think there's a croc behind you.
If it's okay with you, I'd like to move on to the kind of the rapid fire. So we have a set of questions that we ask every guest, and they're supposed to be like pretty quick and straight to the point. And so, other than coffee, what gets you up in the morning?
Oh, the thought of creating something I've never done before. And I don't drink coffee, and I've never smoked cigarettes.
Fair. So the spirit of creation, I like it.
I wake up every day and my mind explodes. There's something on my mind that I've got to think about at that moment. And it's 4 o'clock in the morning every morning. I can't go back to sleep. I'm up at 4 o'clock every morning. I sleep 3.5 hours a day. That's it.
Wow.
That's all I get.
Wow. Well, so the second one is, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self today?
Man, you know what? I wish I could do it all over again, and I wouldn't change a damn thing. I've had the ride of a lifetime. I've been to so many countries. I've partied with so many cool people. I've done things. Look, I was in Qatar as a guest of the Emir with Mark Spitz, Pele, Diego Maradona, and Nadia Comaneci. And he just got done building an arena that actually had his face on the front. And to host his guest, he hired Cirque du Soleil from London, flew him in for 6 people. 6 people. And he knocked out 3 rows of seats and put American lazy boys because he heard Americans like lazy boy chairs. This is like craziness. So I wouldn't, I'd say enjoy every minute of it. And if I had a camera, I wish I would have videoed it all.
Wow. You have had experiences for a lifetime.
It's true.
Okay, another one is, do you have a favorite entrepreneur, like one that you still really look up to?
That's a great question. I'll tell you, for me, I've got 2 people. One is actually a good friend of mine. His name is Rick French, and he owns a really big PR firm amongst many other companies, a production company, everything else, called French West Bond. And Rick is somebody that I've known for a long time. He's one of my best friends. And then secondarily, I feel like all of our lives have changed because of Shark Tank. And I look up to every single one of them. I don't know any of them. I'm not sure that I've ever met any of them, to be honest with you. But I don't think I've ever met them. But just because they changed the culture, and to change the vernacular of conversation in America, where I've got my kids watching 12 hours worth of Shark Tank, and even though they may never go into business, they understand information they never would have gotten anywhere but a business school. That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. It's the best TV show on, I think.
That's a good advice. I like it. Okay, and then lastly, where can our listeners or us find out more about you or keep in touch?
Yeah, if you're Raleigh, come on over. I got an extra bedroom. No, I'm just kidding. You can't do that. You can go to either Celeb Experts, one word, Celeb, CELEB, experts.com, or you can go to thedigitalrenegades.com. Preferably go to LinkedIn and link in with me, and there's links to both of those websites there. I spend all my time on LinkedIn. It is the most powerful tool in my life, other than like a phone, but just in terms of I've saved my business there. I've hired incredible people there. I've closed millions of dollars worth of deals there, and I've made the most incredible friendships there. LinkedIn is the most underappreciated tool in our tool case, and I think people don't recognize it. They don't use it enough. I shoot videos. I don't even care what I'm talking about. I'm just sharing my life. And this is my version of, why people are interested in getting to know each other. Because you don't meet anybody anymore. So you can go on LinkedIn, watch a video of me and say, yeah, you know what? He's crazy, but he's a cool guy. And then people reach out to me. Or I can just share bits of information I get. Or I go digging for articles all the time and I share those articles. Or I comment on people's stuff. It's the most wondrous community anywhere, Myron. And I think that, that's just, it's so powerful. I wish they had it when I was 20, right? But, it is what it is. And so that's the place you can find me most.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Myron, would you like to take it from there? You're on mute. Myron, you're on mute.
Stupid.
There you go.
Okay. Well, as I expected, and even then some, to all the 10,000 people who did not attend today, they've missed a tremendous treat. Okay. But eventually, how powerful, they can find us on YouTube. And eventually, I don't know about 10,000, but we will get there. Most of all, as I anticipated, everybody, I have not actually spoken to Evan very often, but it's just a gut feeling, or even at all, I don't think. The authenticity and the realness is an inspiration. Whether you're 67, 27, or 17 is a goddamn inspiration. And many, many lessons to be learned, no matter what age there is. But most important of all, you really find a way or make a way. I hate to throw it in, but you do. You're a survivor, and you're absolutely right. It's about staying in the game and not to give up. Basically, just don't die, as my friend said.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the bottom line. It's not as simple as that, but it is as simple as that. Don't give up. I just read the book Shoe Dog by Philip Knight's story of Nike. I strongly advise everybody to read that. The man is, whether he wrote it or not, is brilliant. The story is absolutely brilliant. But it's echoed at the end. And it basically says, the same thing. It doesn't advise you taking a job. It advises you go after your calling. Not give up, basically. Keep going. And he certainly epitomized. So, Evan, I can't thank you enough, really. It was absolutely phenomenal. And then some. Just for everybody, in 2 weeks, you're in for another treat. Gentleman joining us, correct me, Joe, is a man named Mr. Lloyd Brown, who's a real serial entrepreneur. Lloyd is in his late 60s, I think, or I think so. If I'm wrong, he's going to kill me. He's made millions or lost millions and made millions or lost millions. You'd love him, man. He's your kind of guy. Yeah, he's also tremendously. He built American Apparel in Canada. He's an extraordinary entrepreneur from 18 years old, really. So, and he's still doing it. He's hungrier than ever. He's an amazing guy. He will never retire. Never, 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 never. So I hope everybody tunes in 2 weeks. Joe, it's up to you. Can't hear you.
Right. And with that being said, we would like to thank each and every one of you for coming on to the show. Those of you who did not come onto the show, shame on you. And to Evan, thank you so much for coming, Evan. We really the time that you took and came on the show. Words cannot express how deeply grateful we are. So
thank you. It's my pleasure.
So,
be a jackhammer, everybody. It's the only way to go, no matter what you do.
Thank you, everyone. Be sure to tune in 2 weeks later, same time, same place, different link. And we'll see you then. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you, Evan, very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.